Welcome to this edition of Patriots No Huddle, brought to you by PatsFans.com. Steve Balsherry, Derek Havens. Here's your host, as always. Hopefully we get Mike Diabate on here as our normal third host here joining us shortly, but he is detained at the moment. We are here to talk to you about the Patriots defeating the Dolphins in Miami, Week 2 of the NFL season, moving the Patriots to a 1-1 record. Patriots win 33-27 in a really kind of a roller coaster win that we're going to dissect here over the next 30 minutes or so. Please do subscribe to us on our Pats Fans YouTube channel, as well as like, share, or leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It keeps us high in those podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. Before we hop into the game, as I've been doing for the last decade plus, Steve, how you doing, man? You're muted, buddy.
Yeah, I hit the unmute button, but it wasn't working. Maybe my computer's trying to tell me something. It was a bizarre game, the ending especially. But, wins are very rare in Miami, so you take what you can get. But I will say this. I thought today, and you and I talked about this, I think, 2 minutes after the game was over.
Yep.
I thought today.
The pre-show.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's funny how Mike Vrabel says how you try to beat bad football. It's like having the other team have more bad football than you do. And I think, that was a compelling case today with both teams committing a lot of egregious mistakes. But at the same time, the Patriots made one less. And, this is, they were 17-43 in Miami coming into today. So you take whatever you can get, when a win coming out of there, and it's going to be a happy
especially if it's early, like in September, Steve. The last time the Patriots won a game in Miami, it was the Antonio Brown game, as I deem it, which is the only game he played for the Patriots, and I was there for that. I was actually in Miami at a bachelor party for that game, and let me tell you, that was a rough flight home. We won, but it was still a rough flight.
I thought this was. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I know time is short for you.
No, it's okay. We got some time.
But I thought this was Drake Maye's best game as a pro.
I think that's the biggest takeaway, but just put a pin in that for 1 second, because the other thing I was going to say is that Tua Tagovailoa has beaten the Patriots his entire career, 7-0. So this is the first time you're beating him, which is a milestone. It wouldn't have been the end of the world, sky is falling, although I know that it would have been portrayed like that if the Patriots had lost the game. But you were able to, I think both teams showed some resiliency, and I'm going to circle back to that as well. But the Patriots, I guess getting to that first and then getting to your point, and I'll let you kind of expound on that. But the Patriots start off, I would say relatively, I wouldn't say hot, but they were on top comfortably. And it looked like that there was a chance, with a big play here or there was a chance the Patriots were just going to run away with this game. It didn't even look like it was going to be competitive for a quick minute. Then the Dolphins came back, and all of a sudden it's a 1-point game going into half. And then the Patriots and Dolphins kind of took blows back and forth, and the Patriots were able to do that. And we'll get to a lot of different factors of why that happened. But to your point, and I do think the biggest takeaway, not only from winning a game, winning against a division rival in a place where you don't have a great record, to your point, 17-43 prior to the game overall record in Miami. Your biggest takeaway is that your second-year quarterback, making his 14th career start, had his best game as a pro, and he was locked in today. And he made some incredible throws. The throw to Stevenson on the wheel route for 56 yards, the throw to Kayshon Boutte, which was an amazing pitch and catch, great one-handed catch by Booty in the end zone. There were some really, really good overall decisions by Drake. He looked more comfortable. He looked in command. He looked poised. He used his legs at times. One for a nice scramble for a first down, one for a touchdown. So I thought he was picking and choosing when he was using to use his legs, Steve, or choosing to use his legs, I should say. And I just thought he had one or two balls that I'm sure he'd like to have back, but overall 19 for 23. Yeah, I thought he was very impressive today. It kind of gave you a glimpse of everything that you were hoping for the Drake Maye, Josh McDaniels marriage. This could be something that they actually could put together and build upon. This is only their second game together. Again, it's only 14th career start. And let's not forget, the Patriots haven't scored over 30 points in 47 games prior to today. And they were able to put up 33. I think there's a lot to be happy about if you're a Patriots fan as we're looking back on this game.
Yeah, and it's funny because we've been hearing the Drake Maye doubters, and there are a lot of them, have been saying, well, when has he put the team on? He's still basically a rookie. When's he going to put the team on his back and win a game?
Today was the day.
That was today. I mean, he was in command all along. There weren't any mistakes by him today. Yeah, there was a couple of passes, that maybe he'd like to have back. But, overall, like you just highlighted the big ones. I mean, today was that day where it's like, hey, he was in command. He looked comfortable. And the offense, was clicking today. I mean, again,
Steve, in the past too, like last year in a couple of his starts, he had plenty of good moments, but right. I don't know if he's played string to string, of a game as consistently strongly as he did today. Like you could say last year at a couple points he had a big throw, a big run, and you're like, okay, but like you had other guys kind of pulling him along. Daniel Jeremiah always uses the truck or trailer analogy for a quarterback. Are you a truck that you can pull, or are you a trailer that you have to be brought forward? He was a truck today. He was able to go ahead and I don't think you come out of Miami without Drake Maye under center today for the Patriots.
No, I mean, look, his completion percentage was 82.6. I don't care who you're playing. We know the Dolphins they're kind of a mess right now. But so what? No one would have felt bad for the Patriots if the Dolphins had won. Oh, because they always win in Miami. Well, guess what? I thought Maye was fantastic. His quarterback rating was 137.8.
Not bad.
That is pretty darn close to the highest you can get, right? And just the way he ran the offense, it was the kind of stuff we've been hoping to see. It's one game, but it's a game that was really important to them because it's in a place where you never play your best football. Going back, I mean, all these years, the Patriots traditionally saved their worst for playing down in Miami. And regardless of the way the game turned out with the big plays in the kicking game,
one for Miami, one
for New England. Yeah. I just thought this was Drake Maye's game.
I want to thank everyone who's listening live or listening back or watching us later on YouTube. Thank you again for joining us on Patriots No Huddle. Steve Belch, Derek Havens here. I want to get into the negatives. There's a lot of positives, okay? And we just talked about the biggest one, which was Drake Maye. I don't know how you cannot come out of this game as a Patriots fan being super excited about what you saw in just his second game against a good front, by the way. Miami's secondary is a disaster. Their team right now is kind of in disarray, but their front seven is pretty good, especially that defensive line, and they had their moments today. But that is actually the kind of area that I wanted to focus on because I thought the Patriots offensive line really was brutal today. Will Campbell was the best by far. on the line. Him and Onwenu, I would say, were right there. Morgan Moses had a incredibly rough day at the office. Garrett Bradbury had some issues. Jared Wilson had some issues. Morgan Moses actually left the stadium in a walking boot. I wouldn't totally raise the red flag yet because that's really the first thing that the training staff will do just to stabilize an injury, so it could be something very minor, so I wouldn't be, freaking out, although I do think that I could see a veteran tackle being called in potentially this week. Morgan Moses, who we all fell in love with at the press conference, really was bad today. The Patriots, Steve, as well as Drake Maye played and as good as they played at times, they also really tried to give the game away at times, especially with some of these penalties. The penalties were just the offensive line protection, the poor tackling, the secondary really misses Christian Gonzalez. Then Carlton Davis goes down. Then they were even more thin. Alex Austin, who I thought finished off the season pretty strong and had a good summer, had a bad day at the office as well. And to me, I don't think I think here's what I want to say, I guess. The team showed you today that they can be competitive and show resiliency, which I think is a great sign. It also showed you that they are still not disciplined enough, and with pre-snap penalties and some of that BS. And they also kind of showed you the lack of depth they have on the roster. As much as turnovers they've had, and as well as they've been trying to build this team, you saw lack of depth in multiple spots. And I thought both of those two things were glaring coming through. Today's win in Miami.
There we go. Okay. The pre-snap penalties. I mean, oh my Lord. I mean, again, when I talk about Drake Maye's day, I mean his other players surrounding him consistently put him behind the sticks, and it was all, mental mistakes, the false starts. And granted, Miami does have a very good, front four. They can get after it. Okay. So the fact that they had, I think it was either 3 or 4 sacks on May, that's not that bad. I thought the protection for the most part was okay, because they're a talented group. We all
They had
know
one or two bad protections, but for the most part, the issue on the line was more before the ball even was snapped.
Yes, and they also had holding penalties, but I mean they were consistently behind the sticks, and that is shooting yourself in the foot time after time. Now they were able to work through that today, but this can't continue if you want to turn the corner. There's still a lot of work to do. I was very impressed with the running game overall. I mean, they ran for 122 yards. The balance. Today was the balance game. We heard that last week. They were way too much in, passing the football rather than, having that balance. Today, they had a great balance. They ran the ball for 122 yards. They passed for 230. Again, I mean, these are the kind of things you look for to turn the corner, but there's still way too many mistakes out there. And for the second week in a row, while we're on the negative subject offensively, and we both know this guy's a really good football player, but I'm surprised for the second week in a row, they really didn't utilize Mario Douglas in the passing game.
No, that was weird. That was weird.
Yeah, and I thought today was going to be one of those games where it's like, okay, yeah, this is where Josh shows. I mean, because that secondary has struggled. And I was thinking, well, everyone talks about how Miami and we're going to get to that in a minute, uses the middle of the field. Today will be the day for, Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, and Demario Douglas to shred the middle of the field in the passing game, and it didn't happen. And I was surprised by that.
Yeah, I thought I was a little surprised. I thought they would have gotten Stephon Diggs involved a little bit more. I thought that Pop Douglas would be utilized a lot more. He really hasn't been involved nearly as much as I thought he was going to be. Kyle Williams really hasn't been involved as much. I wonder if there's some kind of shakeup coming. I know people want Efton Chisholm. Let me just say this about Efton Chisholm. I am not knocking him at all. I'm excited about the prospect that he is. But that's the word I want to use, Steve. Prospect. He's the 6th receiver on the team. He was able to chisel out a spot, kind of out of nowhere, through hard work and making plays during the offseason to be the 6th receiver on the roster. They're not taking 6 receivers to game day. So unless somebody gets hurt or, which we don't want to wish on anybody, obviously. I don't care if it's the Patriots or any other team. I don't want to see a player get hurt. Unless a player is hurt or the coaching staff loses faith, I wouldn't expect to see him much this year. I'm sure he'll be active at some point. The Pop Douglas thing, I don't know if it was a game plan situational thing or whatever. You saw Mac Hollins get involved. He scored a touchdown today. Diggs is going to be there week to week. I have a hard time believing that Chisholm is going to crack the active roster during game days over Pop at this moment. But so far, I mean, I thought Pop was in line for like 100 catches this year. I thought he was going to just ball out. And that might still happen, but it's going to take a much bigger game than the first 2 weeks. Because what is it, like 3 catches for like 6 yards at this point? So, you got to think that, you got to think that there's something there. But I wouldn't be worried about Efton Chisholm. It's a developmental process. I think people need to realize, even though that the Patriots won the game and that Drake Maye had his best game of his young pro career, like we said earlier this week and last week, I want to say it again for any first-time listeners: you have half your roster is new. You have a very much young roster. You have an all-new coaching staff, totally new offensive system from last year to this year. There's a lot of change going on. And it's going to take time for things to build. Okay. If we're having these procedural pre-snap penalties week 6, week 7, and week 8, that's when I'll start really cracking down on the coaching staff and say that's BS. But right now, I'm not going to go ahead and overstress about it. Week 2, hot, humid place. In Miami, you guys have gotten a lot of rain, Steve. I don't have to tell you that. You've gotten a lot of rain. And so, those temperatures were a little bit different than what they've been dealing with in Mass. You have things to overcome. So, give me your next takeaway, Steve, from the game down in Miami.
Yeah, and again, some of the procedural penalties, you're dealing with so many new guys, playing together really for the first time. Maybe it's just the tempo, of the cadence where, they're expecting, because they haven't worked a lot with Drake Maye yet. Maybe it's just like a tempo thing where they haven't, fully got on board with that yet. I'm not making excuses for them. But again, we're talking about week 2 with a lot of new faces. So these things are correctable. The next thing I want to talk about, and you're going to see it all through social media, is Mike Vrabel running down the sideline next to Antonio Gibson.
Well, that was incredible, right? Because Washington had a 70-plus yard return, for a punt return, and then on the ensuing kick return, Antonio Gibson takes it 90+ yards for a touchdown, and you see Gibson running, and you see Vrabel just running down the sidelines. And I think that it's because I think that's partly just who he is, but I think it's also partly because he was a player, and I think he also, another part would be that I think he likes to get his guys excited, and he knows how to do it. He knows that's gonna fire.
He knows when to turn it on, and
Yep.
you know that Vrabel is going to bust his chops when they get in the film room tomorrow, right? And say, if I was on that coverage team, I would have caught you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You know that's happening.
But
I'd be remiss,
again,
Steve.
We know he's a no nonsense dude, but he knows when, like, something like that. He's excited for his guys, and we saw it in preseason and in training camp when he told Drake, "Hey, get down there and celebrate with your guys." And there he was running down the sideline, right beside Antonio Gibson. And I thought that was a great sign, because here, your head coach, he's in it with you. He's in it. He's totally involved with this. And you compare that with the guy on the other side. Now, I know Mike McDaniel is a really good X's and O's kind of guy, but you don't get that vibe from him.
No, I mean, even when you watched the Hard Knocks with the Dolphins, a year ago, he comes across as kind of like quirky and a little socially awkward, like. I'm not talking anything bad about him. I mean, I don't think I said this before the season started. I think this is his last season as the head coach. Whether he makes it through the season is to be determined. But I do think he's a smart offensive mind. I mean, I don't doubt that. But there is a certain command that you have, and I think Vrabel shows the command that you need as a leader of men in that locker room. And I think that's something that can't be denied. To your point, I thought that Craig Woodson and Jalen Hawkins kind of had a rough day. Marcus Jones had some good moments, some bad moments. Alex Austin, I already mentioned. Spillane, Gibbons, not crazy about it. Their performance, I think Spillane had one or two good moments, but
and again, I mean, I thought, look, you got to give Miami credit too, because they get paid.
It's almost like they want to win.
But how they designed some of those passes,
I mean, Tyreek Hill had a great day, over 100 yards.
Yes, but I thought Hatching was their best player by far.
Devin Achane, yeah.
And how they were able to isolate him on Patriots linebackers. I mean, that's one of those matchups that they're going to win that.
I'm sure Taylor Kyles or Evan Lazar could tell me, and I know they could tell me, but that route where he's in the backfield and he runs almost like a sideways V where he goes out by the left tackle and then cuts across the middle linebacker. He got Spillane on that one good, but they were talking about that on the broadcast, and all I could think was, yeah, he got Robert Spillane on that, but I think he would have that on most guys one-on-one in coverage in the league because he's just so explosive.
Exactly.
And I think at some point Henderson will be able to do those kind of things as well with what he brings to the table.
They did a great job. I mean, Ajay, in the running game, they did a fantastic job on him. They were able to get the bodies in front and slow him down. I believe
the Patriots defensive line played very well on balance throughout the day. I mean, there were some issues. There were some issues. Yeah. Obviously, Milton Williams iced the game. Give shout out to him. Christian Barmore, I thought, had a very solid game. Harold Landry had one or two mistakes, but he also had a lot in pursuit. And they were swarming a little bit, and they were able to really kind of penetrate, especially when you had two new starters on the right side of Miami's offensive line.
And Miami did a great job of covering that up early because, I saw on social media where Patriots fans were like, they're not getting any pressure on Tua. He was getting the ball out in the second and a half. I mean, it was like he was getting the ball and he was throwing it. I mean,
And
and
that's true. And that's true because some guys, Steve, they're point guards, and that's what Tua is. I mean, he's kind of a point guard, he's, I wouldn't consider Tua a playmaker per se, but as long as he's healthy, he usually is able to get the ball out quick and distribute it pretty well. And he's done that.
and,
He's done
he
that against the Patriots for,
he's eviscerated
for
the
a while.
Patriots for 7 straight games. And then, it wasn't until later in the game, in the second half, and he was still very successful, but they were taking away that first read finally, right? And they were forcing him to hold on to it. And that's when the Patriots pass rush, the guys you just mentioned, they started to get home. And they ended up with 5 sacks on him. And again, I mean, they had a interception called back early on the Dolphins' first drive because of a penalty. And then the one where Tua overthrew Tyreek Hill, they brought some pressure on him and he sailed that one. And it just so happened that, one of the safeties, I can't remember. I don't know if it was Hawkins or
Woodson, maybe.
he fell and the ball sailed right over him. And I was thinking, man,
I think it was Hawkins, but I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and rewatch the tape. But, they could have had a second pick there. And they ended, God bless Marte Mapu. He picked up an interception. But
it was kind of nice. I'm glad you brought him up, Steve. Not
he
to set
still
you up.
can't tackle.
Yeah, still can't. But it was kind of nice to see him make a play. I don't know. They kept them around for a reason, and sometimes I just feel like guys, I think just having self kind of encouragement and having confidence is so important for some of these guys as a pro athlete with so many eyeballs on them, and just him picking off the pass, I was like, okay, maybe he can build on this just a little bit, and maybe he can turn to the player that we kind of thought he was. I wasn't even confident that if you asked me if I thought Jabril Peppers or Marte Mapu was going to be on the team, I wouldn't have picked Mapu. So, but he's here and Peppers isn't, who we're going to see next week, when the Patriots played the Steelers. But, I would be remiss, Steve, if we didn't talk about, I would say, aside from May, maybe the best player on the field for both sides for the Patriots, and Ramondre Stevenson.
Yes.
We're 28 minutes into this pod, and we haven't even mentioned him, really.
Yeah.
So
yes.
we need to talk about Stevenson.
I figured you were saving him for last because, again, he had a fantastic game.
11 carries, 54 yards on the ground, 4.9 yards per carry, 5 catches, 88 yards. No touchdowns from Stevenson, but man, talk about an impactful day, both running and catching. I thought he looked like the old Ramondre, finishing runs, with a little bit of anger, nice soft hands, and that wheel route, that 56-yard pass for May, which was a dime. It was a dime, but it was still not an easy catch to pull through.
And then he made a couple of really nice moves after the catch to continue on with some added yak on there.
Yeah, but he was able to get some yards.
I'm with you because in the first half, they needed Ramondre to be that battering ram to control the line of scrimmage, to control the tempo, control the clock, and he provided that. And, in the second half, it was more in the passing game. And that one big wheel route was fantastic. He had a great game today. He was very impactful. And again, I still tip my hat a little bit to the offensive line. We mentioned some of the bad play, but last week, all the running backs, that's why they abandoned the run. They were consistently getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. Today, Ramondre was getting to the line of scrimmage, before he was getting hit. And that allowed him to get up that head of steam, which we know once he does that, he can begin to drag people with him, to that second level.
Yeah, Gibson showed a little wiggle at times. I like how they use him. I don't know. Part of me wants to see him be used more, but the other part of me is like, you know what? Ramondre was really the hot hand, and Henderson's so explosive. They want to get the ball in his hands. Henderson didn't have a great day at the office. This is only his second. Career game in the pro. So it's a learning curve. But I thought Gibson.
He had 2 catches, but each of them were 15-yarders. So
yeah, no, I mean he definitely shows promise. I mean, but but they have 3 running backs that I think all can contribute in different ways, and they kind of showed it today. I don't think it was Henderson's best day, but I wouldn't be I wouldn't really too worry about it. I do want to. I have one final point, Steve, and then if you have anything final, you can go after that too. But I do want to talk about this. Andres Borregales, the kicker, kind of a rough day, and he was able to salvage himself with the long field goal, 2 missed extra points. Not great. Missed a field goal last week, week 1. They had John Parker Romo in a kicking competition, elected towards Borregales. He since has moved on to a different team. So what do you do with Borregales? Do you just try to plow through and see if he can do it, or are you bringing in a veteran kicker for the practice squad this week?
Well, again, I mean, he flubbed those 2 extra points. But then, he came to that 53-yard field goal at the end of the game. That was key because if you remember, the Dolphins, if they were only down, a field goal, without that field goal, a field goal would have tied that football.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that was a big, big kick. And for a 53-yarder, I think he earned back. I wouldn't say he's out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, but I think, that kind of cooled his seat off just a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised, however, if they didn't bring somebody in, for a tryout.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing they're not bringing somebody in. I don't think that he's going to lose his job this week, but I might rent and not buy, as my friend Paul Perillo would say. For him,
the old
for
green
the next
bananas
couple weeks.
thing.
The green bananas. I'm not so sure.
But that was, I mean, everything else aside, okay, I'm not just writing it off, but that was a very clutch kick. That 53-yard.
No, that's nothing to sneeze at. If you miss an extra point, everybody makes a mistake here or there, right? Missing the second one to me was
bad.
But that hurts, because let's not forget, all I could think was if he had just made one of those, at least it's a 7-point game. If the Dolphins go down and score a touchdown, if was it Achane who stepped out of bounds?
Stepped out of bounds, yep. That's a 26.
If he takes that to the house, they're up by 1, with all likelihood.
Yeah, with 1 minute and 9 seconds to go.
Yeah, and
so again, I mean, you can't,
those every point matters.
This stuff enough. How the razor thin margin for winning and losing is so thin.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally
agree.
It
is. I mean, if he doesn't step out, they go ahead. Yeah, it's Drake Maye still has 1 minute and 10 seconds to maybe kick another field goal. But, the middle of the field to me was where they struggled. Again, they know how Tua likes to attack the middle of the field. And they did it again far too often for my liking. Now, they made some plays at the end, and, they got that 1 interception, and then, they got some sacks. But stuff really needs to be tightened up defensively.
Any final thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, real quick, I just thought it was, hey, look, this was a needed team win. And winning ugly sometimes is a heck of a lot better than losing ugly. So, they'll take this and hopefully it'll build some confidence. They have a big game next week against the Steelers at home, who lost today. They lost to the Seahawks. So, they'll be smarting. Of course, I saw right after the game that Aaron Rodgers, in typical Aaron Rodgers fashion, he threw his wide receiver under the bus after the game. So things never change, right? But they're going to have to play a lot better overall to beat the Steelers.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Steelers game in depth on Wednesday. Hopefully, with Mike, we'll figure out a time. We usually aim for 11 or 12 Eastern for those that are listening back. So we'll circle back to the Steelers on around noon. I agree with you though. A win is a win, and I do think it's something to build upon. I do think the defense. I think one of my biggest takeaways, aside from Drake, I do want to give Drake his flowers and Ramondre his flowers. I think both guys were stellar today, and two of the biggest reasons why you won this game as a Patriots fan and player. But I do think defensively, Steve, we need the team needs to tighten some things up there.
Big time.
But at the same time, I would say the same thing about we're talking on offense about kind of building. I would say the same thing on defense, like you're building as well. And it's going to get more complex, and guys are learning to play together. There's a lot of new players there. They're missing guys in the secondary. Let's hope Carlton Davis's injury isn't too bad, and let's hope Christian Gonzalez can get back on the field, next week, because they definitely miss him, and the depth is exposed. And I do think Alex Austin and Marcus Jones are fine depth players, but they're not starters, and that is that's definitely been shown through the first 2 weeks, I would say. But anyway, very good win for the team down in Miami. First time in 47 games they scored 30 points. First time they beat Tua Tagovailoa. First time they'd win in Miami since 2019. You're listening to Patriots No Huddle, brought to you by PatsFans.com. Please do check out our Pats Fans YouTube channel. Like, share, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Keep us high in those rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. For Steve Balistrieri, I'm Derek Havens. We will see you guys on Wednesday. And thank you again for listening to this episode of Patriots No Huddle.